I'm Kayla, and let me tell you, life can throw you curveballs that make you question everything you thought you knew. One moment, you're building a future with someone you love, and the next, you're standing in your own home, hearing words that shatter your world. But let's start at the beginning, because that's where I thought I had it all figured out. I'm 35, living in suburban Chicago, and I've spent the last decade climbing the ladder at a marketing firm downtown. I'm a department manager now, leading a team of sharp, motivated folks who make the long hours worth it. My boss is the kind who drops wisdom without preaching, and I've earned every promotion through sweat and late nights. Growing up, it was just me and my mom in a cramped apartment on the south side. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, always warning me about the traps of debt and bad choices. "Kayla," she'd say, stirring a pot of her famous chili, "you've got to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't let anyone pull you under." Her words stuck, pushing me to ace school, land a scholarship, and build a career I'm proud of. But while work filled my days, my nights were quiet. No boyfriend, no big social life, just me, my books, and the occasional glass of wine. That changed when a coworker dragged me to a dinner party in Lincoln Park. I wasn't thrilled about it. Small talk isn't my thing. But that's where I met Jacob. He was 35, a graphic designer with a smile that could light up a room. He had this easy charm, cracking jokes about Chicago winters and asking me about my favorite spots in the city. We clicked instantly, swapping stories about our college days and bonding over our love for deep dish pizza. Jacob felt like someone I could talk to for hours, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. We started texting, then grabbing coffee, then dinners at cozy spots along the lakefront. He'd listen when I vented about work, and I loved how he seemed to get me. A few months in, he confessed he was falling for me, and my heart did a somersault. When he proposed a year later, kneeling under the twinkling lights of Millennium Park, I said yes, without a second thought. I was head over heels, dreaming of a life with someone who felt like my partner in every way. Jacob's parents lived in a quiet suburb just outside Chicago, and I was nervous about meeting them. My mom had warned me about in-laws who could make or break a marriage. But when I walked into their cozy, if slightly cluttered, home, they greeted me like I was already family. "Kayla, you're a gem," Jacob's mom said, pulling me into a hug. "Our boy's lucky to have you." His dad nodded, offering me a slice of homemade pie. "A career woman, huh? That's the spirit. You keep doing you." Their warmth put me at ease, and I thought, maybe this is what a real family feels like. Jacob laughed off their compliments, squeezing my hand under the table. They asked about my job, clearly impressed I was a manager at a big firm. "You're not quitting when you get married, are you?" his mom asked, eyebrows raised. I shook my head. "No way. I love my work." They exchanged a look, then smiled. "Good for you," his dad said. "A woman who knows her worth." I left their house feeling like I'd hit the jackpot, not just with Jacob, but with his family too. My mom's struggles had taught me to be cautious, but I let myself believe this was different. I was wrong, but I didn't know it yet. We got married in a small ceremony at a lakeside venue, with my mom beaming and Jacob's parents toasting to our future. I moved into Jacob's apartment, a modest place in Evanston, and we started our life together. Every morning, I'd wake up next to him, feeling like I was living a dream. But dreams have a way of cracking, and mine was about to shatter in ways I never saw coming. Married life felt like a warm blanket at first. Jacob and I would cook dinner together in our Evanston apartment, laughing over burnt attempts at lasagna or sneaking bites of dessert before the main course. I'd come home from long days at the firm, and seeing him sprawled on the couch with a sketch pad, working on his latest design, made everything feel right. But 8 months in, that cozy blanket started to unravel. One evening, as we sat on our balcony overlooking the quiet street, Jacob cleared his throat, looking nervous. "Kayla, I've been thinking," he said, swirling his coffee mug. "My parents aren't getting any younger, and I'm worried about them living alone. What if we moved in with them? We could renovate their house into a duplex, so we'd all have our own space." I blinked, caught off guard. My mom lived with my aunt in a small place downtown, so I hadn't worried about her in years. But Jacob was an only child, and I could see the concern in his eyes. They've got room, right? I asked, trying to picture it. He hesitated. Not exactly. Their place is packed with stuff, but a renovation could fix that. We'd have our own side. Total privacy. The idea didn't thrill me, but I loved Jacob, and his parents had been so kind. Plus, a duplex sounded practical, cheaper than buying a new place in Chicago's crazy market. How much would it cost? I asked. He fidgeted, then said, about $200,000. But it'd be worth it, right? A big, beautiful house for all of us. I nodded slowly, my mom's voice echoing in my head about being careful with money. But I pushed it aside, wanting to make Jacob happy. Then came the bombshell. A few days later, over dinner, Jacob looked like he was carrying a weight. Kayla, there's something else, he said, avoiding my eyes. My parents, they're in debt. Big debt. Like $650,000. My fork froze midair. What? I managed, my voice sharp. He explained how his parents had sunk money into bad investments, some real estate deal gone wrong, plus years of living beyond their means. They never told me when we were dating, he said, looking guilty. I didn't know how bad it was until recently. My heart pounded. Growing up, I'd watched my mom juggle bills, always one step from disaster. I'd sworn never to let debt trap me. How could they not tell us? I asked, my voice shaking. Jacob reached for my hand. They're ashamed, Kayla. They're on a fixed income now, and I don't earn enough to help. But you're amazing. If you could help with the renovation and maybe part of the debt, we could save them. I'll pay you back, I swear. His eyes were pleading, and I felt torn. I loved him, and I wanted to believe this was just a rough patch. But $650,000? Plus $200,000 for the house? That was nearly $1 million. I thought of my mom, who'd sacrificed everything to give me a stable life. I didn't want Jacob's parents to lose everything either. Okay, I said, finally, my stomach twisting. I'll help, but we need a plan. Jacob's face lit up, and he hugged me tight. You're incredible, Kayla. My parents are going to be so grateful. Later, they came over, tears in their eyes, thanking me like I was their savior. You're a blessing, his mom said, squeezing my arm. I smiled, but deep down, I felt a pang of unease. My mom's warnings about trusting too easily crept back, but I buried them, telling myself love meant taking risks. I had savings, years of careful budgeting, and bonuses from work. I used $150,000 to start, covering part of the debt and kicking off the renovation. The rest, I'd pay in installments, dipping into my salary each month. It hurt to see my savings dwindle, but I told myself it was for family. Jacob's parents promised to handle the debt payments if I transferred the money directly, but I insisted on paying the creditors myself. It's safer, I said, remembering my mom's horror stories about mismanaged money. They nodded, but I caught a flicker of annoyance in their eyes. I brushed it off, focusing on the future. A beautiful duplex, united family, and a life with Jacob. But that uneasy feeling? It never quite went away. Moving into the duplex was like stepping into a glossy magazine spread. The house, just outside Chicago, had gleaming hardwood floors, a sleek kitchen, and a private wing for Jacob and me. My commute to the city was shorter, giving me extra time to study for a certification that could boost my career. Jacob's parents gushed over the place, their side just as modern, with new appliances and fresh paint. Kayla, you've given us a new life, his dad said, clapping me on the shoulder. I smiled, but their praise felt heavy, like I was carrying the whole house on my back. I threw myself into work, pulling overtime to cover the debt payments. In a year, I'd paid off $150,000, chipping away at the $650,000 mountain. But Jacob? He didn't contribute a dime. When we'd agreed to tackle this together, he'd promised to pitch in from his freelance gigs. Yet every time I brought it up, he'd shrug, saying, "My jobs are inconsistent, Kayla. You know how it is." I asked to see his pay stubs, just to understand, but he'd change the subject or snap. "Why don't you trust me?" His defensiveness stung, reminding me of my mom's stories about men who made excuses while she scrambled to pay bills. Jacob's parents were no better. They'd thank me profusely, especially when I handed over another payment, but they never offered to help. One afternoon, I mentioned the remaining $500,000 debt over coffee in their kitchen. "You're a miracle worker, Kayla," his mom said, her eyes misty. "At this rate, you'll clear it in a few years." Her words should have warmed me, but they didn't. I saw how they'd order takeout from fancy restaurants or buy new gadgets, while I was eating ramen to save every penny. Were they even trying to change their spending habits? I started to feel like a cash machine, not a daughter-in-law. The worst part was the little things piling up. Jacob would come home late, claiming he was meeting clients, but his phone was always face down, buzzing with texts he'd ignore. When I'd ask about his day, he'd give vague answers, then turn on the TV to avoid me. My mom's voice echoed again. People who hide things usually have something to hide. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was paranoid. I loved Jacob, and I'd promised to help his family. But every late night, every evasive glance, chipped away at my trust. One evening, I sat alone in our wing, staring at the spreadsheet tracking the debt payments. My savings were nearly gone, and my paychecks were stretched thin. I'd always prided myself on being smart with money, but now I felt like I was drowning. I called my mom, needing her steady voice. "Kayla," she said, "you can't pour from an empty cup. If Jacob's not pulling his weight, you need to ask why." Her words hit hard, but I wasn't ready to face the truth. I wanted to believe in the life we were building. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, and it was about to get worse. One night, work wrapped up earlier than expected. I told Jacob I'd be stuck at the office late, prepping for a big client pitch, but the team nailed it ahead of schedule. I was thrilled, picturing a quiet dinner with him, maybe even rekindling the spark we'd lost in the chaos of debt payments. I drove home to the duplex, humming along to the radio, feeling lighter than I had in months. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw Jacob's parents' car parked out front. Odd, I thought they usually stayed in their wing. I stepped inside, kicking off my shoes, and heard voices from the living room. Jacob's laugh, low and smug, mixed with his parents' chuckles. I froze, something in their tone setting my nerves on edge. I crept closer, staying in the hallway, hidden by the half-open door. What I heard next ripped my world apart. "You played it smart, Jacob," his dad said, his voice dripping with pride. "Marrying Kayla was the best move you ever made. A woman with a job like that? She's a goldmine." "Seriously," his mom chimed in, laughing. "That fancy firm she works for? We knew she'd bail us out. And that duplex? Pure genius." Jacob's voice cut through, cold and calculated. "Yeah, she's been so focused on paying off your debt, she didn't even notice I've been saving my cash on the side. Once she clears the rest, I'm done. I've got someone else lined up, someone who doesn't nag me about pay stubs." My heart stopped. I pressed myself against the wall, my breath shallow, as his dad laughed. "What about that debt? You didn't help much with that $650,000, did you? All that overspending was on us, but you're no saint." "Hey," Jacob shot back. "I didn't rack up the whole thing. But Kayla's eating it up, thinking she's saving the family. She's so gullible." Their laughter echoed, each word a knife in my chest. My mom's warning screamed in my head. She told me to watch for people who'd use me, but I'd let love blind me. Jacob had targeted me from that first dinner party, playing the charming artist while his parents cheered him on. And now? He was planning to dump me for another woman, leaving me to clean up their mess. I stumbled back to the entryway, my hands shaking as I fumbled with my keys to make noise. "I'm home," I called, forcing my voice to stay steady. I walked into the living room, and their faces shifted, smiles plastered on, like nothing had happened. "Kayla, welcome back," his mom said, too cheerful. Jacob stood up, giving me a quick hug. "Didn't expect you so soon. Good day." His eyes were warm, but I saw the lie in them now. "Yeah, finished early," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Thought I'd make dinner." They nodded, acting like the perfect family, but I felt sick. Over dinner, I smiled and nodded through their small talk. every bite tasting like ash. Later, alone in our bedroom while Jacob showered, I locked myself in the bathroom and let the tears come. I cried for the woman who'd trusted too much, who'd poured her heart and savings into a lie. But as the sobs faded, something else took over. Anger, sharp and clear. They thought they'd played me, but I wasn't done yet. I'd make sure they regretted underestimating me. The next 5 months were a masterclass in keeping my cool. I smiled at Jacob, laughed with his parents, and acted like the devoted wife they expected. But behind the scenes, I was planning. I'd overheard their betrayal, and I wasn't going to let them walk away with my money or my dignity. My mom had taught me to be smart, to think 3 steps ahead, and that's exactly what I did. One evening, I sat Jacob down in our pristine duplex kitchen, the one I'd paid for. "Good news," I said, forcing a smile. "I paid off your parents' debt. All $650,000. His eyes widened, greed flashing across his face before he masked it. "Seriously? Kayla, that's incredible. How'd you manage that?" I shrugged, playing modest. "I've been saving aggressively, plus some bonuses from work. I moved money around, paid the last $500,000 in one go. Want to see the bank records?" I slid my phone over, showing a carefully doctored statement I'd created, transferring funds to a separate account to make it look like the debt was gone. Jacob couldn't hide his excitement, his hands practically twitching. "My parents are gonna lose it," he said, fake tears in his eyes. "You're amazing." I nodded, my stomach churning at his act. His parents came over the next day, showering me with thanks. "Kayla, you're a godsend," his mom said, hugging me. I smiled, knowing their gratitude was as fake as Jacob's tears. I was ready to spring my trap. A few days later, Jacob asked to talk, his face serious. "Kayla, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving you," he said, leaning back in his chair like he'd rehearsed it. "I've got someone new. You can move in with my parents if you want, help them out, maybe clean their place." My jaw dropped, not because I was surprised, but because I needed him to think I was. "What are you saying?" I asked, letting my voice tremble. He sighed, impatient. "I don't need you anymore. You've done enough." Right on cue, his parents walked in, smirking. "You can stay with us, Kayla," his dad said. "But you'll need to earn your keep. Maybe pay a little rent." They laughed, and I felt the same rage from that night in the hallway. But this time I was ready. "You all need to leave," I said, my voice steady. Their laughter stopped. "What?" Jacob's mom snapped. I crossed my arms. "This house is in my name. I paid for the renovation, and I decide who stays. Not you." Their faces paled as they remembered the title transfer, something I'd insisted on to protect our investment. Jacob tried to recover. "But you paid off our debt. You can't just kick us out." I smiled, cold and calm. "Actually, I didn't pay the last $500,000. I moved money to make it look like I did. The debt's still there, and the collectors will be calling soon. Oh, and Jacob? Since you admitted to cheating, I'll be asking for alimony through my lawyer. Same goes for your girlfriend. And you," I turned to his parents, "owe me $150,000 for what I've already paid." Jacob's jaw dropped. "You lied about the debt?" he sputtered. "You can't do this." His mom clutched his dad's arm, panicking. "Kayla, please, we can't afford that." I didn't flinch. "You should have thought of that before you laughed about using me." I put the duplex on the market the next week. It sold fast for $800,000. Chicago's suburbs are hot, and a modern duplex was a steal. After covering the $150,000 I'd paid on the debt and the $200,000 renovation, I walked away with $450,000. My lawyer secured alimony from Jacob and his girlfriend, who dumped him when she realized he was broke. His parents scrambled to cover the $150,000 I demanded, selling off assets to avoid court. The remaining $500,000 debt? That was their problem now. With my savings restored, and then some, I invested smarter, diversifying into stocks, bonds, and a small rental property. My mom's lessons about financial independence paid off. I also took courses to sharpen my skills, landing a promotion to senior manager at the firm. The extra income let me buy a cozy house in Oak Park with a garden I'd always dreamed of. I traveled, Paris, New Orleans, places I'd only seen in pictures. More importantly, I rebuilt my circle, surrounding myself with friends who had my back and family like my mom and aunt, who reminded me what real love looked like. Looking back, Jacob and his parents broke my trust, but they also taught me I'm stronger than I knew. My mom's voice guided me through, and I turned their betrayal into my triumph. I'm not just surviving. I'm thriving, building a life that's mine on my terms. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, deception, and a comeback that felt sweeter than I can describe. If my story hit home, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every tale we share is about fighting back, finding your strength, and carving out a new beginning. Keep building your own path, and I'll see you at the finish line.